I am Jacquie Franciulli for Gators Territory. Alongside me is the athletic Will Sammon, and we're back with On the Beat, and it's a big week for Florida football. Will, we certainly feel a different energy to this team. I think Kyrie Campbell's video interview that you can find on Gators Territory pretty much sums it up. He just wants to go and hit somebody. What have you really seen from these Florida interviews that we've already had this week?
It's the type of intensity that you want to see if you're a Florida fan, right? I mean, like, a lot of people have been critical of Florida not playing up to opponents every single week, kind of playing down a little bit to the competition. But hey, a good thing here is that you don't have that sort of thing in front of you anymore. It doesn't get much better than this, doesn't get much tougher than this, at least so far for the Gators right now. And they're playing with the requisite energy that you need to play with.
I know the one thing that we focused on, Will, has been the defense. They have not allowed a touchdown since Felipe Franks went down. They've been doing really well in the second half of adjustments. Can we say that it's about the opponents that they've been facing, or is it because, you know, this team is about adjusting during the end game and Todd Grantham is just really good about reading those offenses just during the game?
Yeah, I like the defense a lot. I think that they have some really quality players to them, and they're only going to get better with the health that's going to come Saturday. Guys are finally going to be able to return. What I like about the team is kind of something that I also don't like at the same time, and that's they give up a lot of yards on drives. And the flip side of that, though, is that they don't allow too many points, which means, hey, they're giving up the yardage, but they're bearing down when it matters, and they're forcing punts. They're not giving up points. So you like that. But it's not exactly 3 and outs. It's okay, they're going to pick up a first down, they're going to extend the drive, that sort of thing. And when you play quality opponents and quality offenses, that tends to catch up to you. And it's a big difference between allowing Auburn to get that extra set of downs versus a team like Towson, of course. And so we'll see if that haunts them, but my gut tells me that when guys are back healthy, the team is better, and we're not going to see as much of that because it's also a product of just not tackling well, and when you get better quality players, that's not as much of an issue.
Yeah, and without their best leaders on the defense, CJ Henderson and Jabari Zuniga, in the last few games, they're able to get 11 takeaways when they only had 3 takeaways in the first 2 games. So they've been able to step it up without those leaders well. And I think that is one thing that when we look at Auburn, you think they have a freshman quarterback in Bo Nix coming into the swamp, definitely a lot of energy. And Bo Nix has been inconsistent for Auburn until he faced Mississippi State last week. Now, to be fair, when you look at Florida's defense against an athletic quarterback, you kind of hesitate a little bit. We saw that against Tom Flacco, but to Todd Grantham's defense, as soon as he saw Tom Flacco, run, I think it was 30 yards and 2 big runs, he moved Amari Burney, and Amari Burney kind of shut that down. So when you look at this matchup with Bo Nix, do you feel like that's something where Florida might struggle a little bit more, or do you feel like Tom Flacco kind of opened their eyes a little bit already soon last week, that will be something to key on right away?
Well, the thing that you got to keep in mind is that Auburn has so many other weapons that can hurt you. So yes, Flacco played a great game. I love what he was able to do with the pump fakes and keeping guys off balance and just cutting and making the right angle. Very hard. He played a really great game. I give him a lot of credit. But I think you're right. They made the adjustment. That's what we've seen in the second half of almost every game so far, is that they made the right adjustment, and whatever was working for the offense in the first half ceased to work in the second half. Again, the problem is that Auburn has a bevy of playmakers. They're not going to do just one thing. They're not going to have just one thing that's going to work. They're going to go through a whole bunch of, an array of options, and Bo Nix is one of those guys. And I think you're right. Against Mississippi State, he played his best game. He was very efficient passing the ball. He's not going to have that same success, I don't think, at least against Florida, because Florida's secondary is so much better than Mississippi State's. It's not a great Mississippi State defense. It's not that same defense that they had last year. And so Bo Nix was able to pick that apart. But Florida, I assume, is going to get a lot more pressure on that kid. Mississippi State only pressured Bo Nix 5 times. And of those 5 attempts, Bo Nix was 0 for 5. So that kind of tells you a little bit. The kid doesn't really thrive under pressure when the pressure's in his face. And so as best as Grantham and the defense could possibly do, they're going to send the pressure his way, and I just don't like his chances when that's happening.
Yeah, he's going to see Jonathan Greenard, that he's going to have some time over there, and that he's been having such a great season for Florida, and I think he'll be key against Bo Nix. But you have to also talk about Auburn's They're really, really good on their run game. Gus Malzahn really does a great job with his offense. I believe Trey Dean is going to be a big playmaker for Florida and a really key point in that, especially at the start position, which he has not been consistent for Florida this year.
Yeah, he needs to have a huge game. Let's face it. I mean, last week even Towson had some success targeting him in the passing game even, and we've seen him. It's one thing when you're a defensive back and you're giving up catches. Sometimes you're taught to do that. The problem is that Trey Dean is, I think, averaging about 10 plus yards per catch against him, or even per attempt, actually, not just catch, per attempt. That's a number that has to improve, of course. And so he's a big factor in this game. You can't have him being picked on, and you need him to also step up in the run game, give that support, make some plays. I think he's talented enough to do that. I really do. And you mentioned Grenard. I can't think of a defensive player that has played just 1 year on a team and in a matter of 4 or 5 games has emerged as like the leader of a group. I mean, you see that with quarterbacks when they transfer in, not so much with the rush end. I mean, what he's been able to do, where would this defense be without him? Florida fans don't want to think about that right now. They're just happy to have the guy because he's been that dynamite for them.
Rush end or DB, right? Because 3 pass breakups, 1 interception. Trey Dean said he can. They want him in DBU. You know, he's been playing great. I know we focus a lot on the defense, but I do believe the defense is going to be key against Auburn. I think it's going to be a very defensive showdown. But moving to Florida's offense, obviously all eyes will be on Kyle Trask. This is a test for him. A very strong Auburn D-line. I just picture Mississippi State game last year. A lot of jet sweeps, a lot of those wide out passes. Do you kind of see that happening, especially with the O-line? Kind of almost similar to where they were in Mississippi State. I think a lot of people forget that this O-line was a work in progress last year as well.
Yeah, you know, the thing is about with Florida's offense versus this really good defense, the key is to limit the mistakes. And that's really the big thing. I'm not looking, if I'm Florida, to make like these hero plays and you know, you're not going to slice up this Auburn defense. It's just not going to happen that way, in my opinion, at least. So what you're going to ask yourselves to do is to play really good defense, win that field position battle, and then hope your offense does just enough to keep moving the chains, win ball control, and make enough plays at the end of the day, which is what they did versus Mississippi State in that tough defense, where they didn't really make a whole lot of mistakes. And that's what you like about Kyle Trask, is that he makes some really good decisions. I know some people got on him in that first game against, I think it was Tennessee, right? That first start where he made a couple of those throws that resulted in interceptions. I mean, they were up by a lot of points. It was late in the game, so I didn't really mind them. And here's a game where I don't think he makes those same throws. And so I like him in the pocket. I think you're going to see him make some better decisions. I think you're going to see him pick up blitzes a little bit better. And you're going to see a more sound sort of judgment game from him, I think.
The one question is, obviously, they need to establish the run, which goes back to the O-line. Now, do you think Richard Garage will get his first start, or do you think the same starting 5 will start against Auburn?
If it's me, I start Richard Garage just because, I mean, Chris Bleich, I think his talent is pretty solid. I don't want to say it's like through the roof, but I think he'll be a quality SEC offensive lineman in time. But it's been an uneven start to his career so far, which is to be expected. I mean, he still has so inexperienced when you're comparing him to the defensive fronts that he's gone against. Now you could quibble and say, okay, they're not the best, they're not the most talented guys that he's played against, but they're experienced guys, more experienced than he is in a lot of cases. And his season has been uneven, and I look at Richard, and I'm not really convinced that the offense has been that much better with him, but it's been better. And we don't see as many blown-up plays, and I think he's giving you just more consistency when he is in the ball game.
Now, all right, now this is the big moment. Well, the prediction: Auburn or Florida?
Man, it's a tough one, right? It's probably the toughest one. I'm gonna go Auburn here. I'm gonna go Auburn. I think it's gonna be a tough game for Florida to win. I do see a path where they do win this game. It does exist, but I would go with Auburn just because I like what they've seen. I feel like they're a little bit more battle tested. Played Oregon, played Texas A&M, more battle tested. I like the corner that Bo Nix has seemingly turned, and I like their defensive front. So I'm giving them the slight edge here by about maybe 2 or 3 points.
Now it's my turn, I guess. I'm actually going to pick Florida. I think I do see what you're saying about Bo Nix turning a corner. The team has been battle tested. I just think that Dan Mullen is going to be able to game plan to hide his weaknesses, and I think Florida is going to manage to win because of their defense. I think Bo Nix is going to feel that pressure. I think Jonathan Greenard is going to make him make those mistakes. They've been really good on those takeaways. So I'm going to pick Florida by 2 or 3 points because I think Bo Nix is going to feel the pressure. And like you said, against Mississippi State, when he was pressured, he made some mistakes. So I'm going to pick Florida by 2 or 3 points. So obviously, we're going to have you back here next week so we can see who got it right. Well, thank you so much, Will. I appreciate it for joining us.
Oh, anytime. Thanks for having me.
All right, obviously stay with Gators territory as we continue to count down to this big matchup against Auburn.